You wake up before sunrise. Not because an alarm went off. Because something moved in the dark. You don't know what it was. A rustle in the dry grass. A sound you can't place. Your body is already awake. Every nerve lit up, scanning the darkness around you. Because out here, in the African savanna roughly 50,000 years ago, the wrong sound at the wrong moment is the last thing you ever hear. You are a hunter-gatherer, and you have been doing this your entire life. Except, you haven't. Not really. Because you are a modern human. You were born into a world of grocery stores and running water and mattresses and fire you summon with the flick of a switch. And despite the fact that every cell in your body was built for this older world, despite the fact that your brain, your lungs, your eyes, and your feet were shaped by millions of years of exactly this kind of life, you would not survive it. Not for a week. Probably not even for a few days. That's not an insult. It's a calculation. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Your ancestors, the real ones, the ones who looked like you, thought like you, loved their children the way you do, lived as hunter-gatherers for roughly 95% of human history. That number is almost impossible to grasp. Agriculture is only about 12,000 years old. Writing is younger than that. The industrial world you were born into? A heartbeat. A rounding error. For nearly 300,000 years, every human being on Earth woke up to the same problem. Find food, find water, stay warm, don't get killed. That was the whole job. So let's walk through it, day by day, and let's be honest about what it would actually look like for someone like you. The first thing you lose is sleep. Not because you're uncomfortable, although you will be, but because the concept of safe, unbroken, 8-hour sleep is a recent luxury that your ancestors never had. Jerome Siegel, a neuroscientist at UCLA, published a landmark 2015 study tracking the actual sleep patterns of 3 living hunter-gatherer groups, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of the Kalahari, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. What he found surprised a lot of people. Traditional people sleep in shorter, fragmented patterns, rarely exceeding 6 to 7 hours, and often waking in the middle of the night for an hour or more before drifting off again. Their nights aren't quiet. Someone is always awake. The fire has to be maintained. Predators don't keep schedules. A sleeping group is a vulnerable group, and some part of the human brain never fully forgets that. You'll wake up stiff. The ground is hard. There's no padding, no elevation, no pillow. And by the time the sun begins to burn the horizon orange, you'll be expected to function immediately. Now comes the food problem. And this is where most modern humans would hit their first wall. You don't eat until you find something. That is the rule. There are no stored calories waiting for you. No backup supply, no pantry, no refrigerator. If the group didn't dry or smoke extra meat from yesterday's hunt, and if the wild fruit in this territory has already been stripped by animals or picked clean by others, then today you go hungry until you solve the problem. Every calorie is a decision. Every decision costs energy you don't have to spare. Frank Marlowe, an anthropologist at Cambridge University who spent years living alongside the Hadza in northern Tanzania, documented that Hadza men typically walk between 7 and 12 miles every single day. Not for exercise, not to hit a step count, but because food is spread across a landscape that doesn't care whether you find it. They walk that distance barefoot, or in minimal sandals, across terrain that would destroy the average modern foot within an hour. Dry rock, thorn scrub, uneven ground, sharp volcanic soil baked hard by the equatorial sun. Your feet aren't ready for this. Not anymore. You have been wearing shoes your entire life. The intrinsic muscles of the foot, the 26 bones, the 33 joints, the more than 100 tendons and ligaments that are supposed to absorb impact and stabilize movement, have been passively supported since the day you first wore sneakers. They have never had to do the full work they were designed for. So on day 1, you limp. By day 2, you have open blisters. By day 3, those blisters are infected. An infection in the ancient world is not a minor inconvenience. It is a countdown. There is no antibiotic. There is no urgent care. There is only the wound, and whatever happens next. What about hunting? Surely that's where the real test is? You've probably heard the term persistence hunting. It refers to the practice documented among San hunter-gatherers in the Kalahari by researcher Louis Liebenberg, beginning in the 1980s. The technique works like this. Hunters track prey, often a kudu or a wildebeest, across open terrain in midday heat, at a pace the animal can sustain, but one that doesn't allow it to cool down. Over hours, sometimes crossing 20 miles or more, the animal accumulates heat it cannot shed. It collapses from hyperthermia. The hunters close in. Humans are extraordinary distance runners. Daniel Lieberman and Dennis Bramble's widely cited 2004 paper in the journal Nature made the argument that our bodies were specifically engineered for endurance. Our Achilles tendons function as elastic springs, our nuchal ligament, a band of connective tissue running up the back of the skull, stabilizes our head during running in a way no other primate can match. Our sweat glands, distributed across almost our entire skin surface, cool us far more efficiently than the panting systems of most four-legged animals. We were, in a very real sense, built to run prey into the ground. But here's what that research doesn't tell you. Persistence hunting works because the hunters can read the landscape. They read the angle of a displaced pebble, the depth of a hoof print, the way a branch is bent, the difference between a kudu running in full-blown panic and a kudu beginning to slow with heat exhaustion. Liebenberg spent years learning from sand hunters, and he described their tracking ability as a form of applied science, a cognitive system built from thousands of hours of observation, inherited knowledge passed down through generations, and years of trial and error in a specific territory they have known since childhood. You don't have that knowledge. You've never had it. Without it, you don't chase an animal to exhaustion. You exhaust yourself. And then you've burned thousands of calories you haven't replaced, in heat you underestimated, miles from your group, in country you don't know well enough to navigate home before dark. By midday, dehydration is coming for you. Water sources in the Pleistocene, the geological epoch stretching back roughly 2.6 million years that shaped most of modern human evolution, were not taps. They were rivers, seasonal pools, springs hidden inside rock faces, and standing water that animals visited at dawn and dusk. Some of those animals were large enough to kill you without effort. Crocodiles in river crossings. Cape buffalo near waterholes. Lions that are patient in a way that makes you feel washed before you see anything at all. And some of the water itself was contaminated with parasites, bacteria, or protozoa that would have you vomiting within 24 to 48 hours. A death sentence in a world without rehydration salts or intravenous fluids. Herman Pontzer, a paleoanthropologist at Duke University whose metabolic studies of the Hadza upended conventional wisdom about hunter-gatherer caloric expenditure, has documented just how differently the Hadza's bodies perform compared to modern sedentary humans. Their cardiovascular efficiency is measurably superior. Their grip strength is greater. Their bodies are conditioned from early childhood by the sheer physical demand of daily life in a landscape that doesn't accommodate weakness. Your body was not conditioned that way. The first afternoon of genuine heat, genuine dehydration, and genuine effort would hit you like a wall you never saw coming. And then there's the cold. If you're picturing a pleasant savanna afternoon, adjust the image. Nighttime temperatures across the Kalahari drop dramatically after sunset, sometimes by 30 degrees or more. During the Pleistocene ice ages that shaped so much of modern human anatomy and behavior, temperatures at higher elevations or in more northern latitudes could fall far below freezing even in what passed for summer. Fire is not guaranteed. Fire requires dry tinder, the right technique, and a spark. And in wet conditions, or in the hands of someone who has never practiced, fire fails. You would be cold in a way that doesn't feel heroic or cinematic. It would just creep in quietly. Your thinking would slow first, then your coordination. Then your decision-making would begin to deteriorate in ways you wouldn't notice until the decisions were already made badly. The night would be very long. Here is the counterintuitive twist, the part the lone survivor fantasy always gets wrong. Your ancestors were never doing this alone. Richard Lee's foundational fieldwork with the Jew/Hoansi San people of the Kalahari, beginning in 1963, is among the most important studies ever conducted on hunter-gatherer life. What Lee found was not a brutal, every person for themselves scramble for survival. He found something that looked, by certain measures, almost comfortable. The Jew/Hoansi worked an average of 15 to 20 hours per week to meet their food needs. The rest of their time was spent in conversation, storytelling, visiting, music, and rest. They weren't exhausted. They were embedded. deeply, completely embedded in a web of relationships, skills, and shared knowledge that made the whole system work. James Sussman, an anthropologist who spent decades living with the Jew/Hoansi and wrote about their lives in affluence without abundance, described the accumulated knowledge inside a single experienced gatherer's mind as staggering. An adult woman in the Kalahari carries a detailed internal map of her territory: which plants are edible, which are medicinal, which are toxic, which root stores water in a drought, which berry is ripe this week versus next. Children begin learning this from the moment they can walk, absorbing it through observation, imitation, and participation over 15 years of gradual immersion. You are starting at zero. And unlike the modern world, where ignorance is recoverable, where you can Google the wrong answer and try again tomorrow, out here, ignorance is often irreversible. A misidentified plant, a misjudged distance to water, a fire that doesn't light on the wrong night. The knowledge gap between you and even a 10-year-old Hadza child, in terms of practical survival skill, is not embarrassing. It's terminal. So why does any of this matter? Why think about a world you'll never actually inhabit? Because you carry that world inside you. Every system in your body was calibrated for it. Your stress response, the cortisol spike, the tunnel vision, the racing heart. That is a savanna alarm system that evolved over millions of years and is still running, right now, inside you. Your cravings for fat, for sugar, for salt are ancient hunger signals calibrated for a world where those things were rare and precious and worth every risk to obtain. Your instinct to scan a new room when you enter it, your preference for sitting with your back to a wall, your involuntary flinch at sudden movement. These are not quirks. These are programs that once kept people alive. The mismatch between the world your body was built for and the world you actually live in explains a quietly startling amount of modern suffering. Anxiety disorders that fire without any clear threat. Obesity driven by drives designed for scarcity. Insomnia rooted in a vigilance system that was never meant to switch off. Loneliness that cuts deeper than it seems like it should, because you have a body built to function inside a group of 30 people it has known its entire life, working alongside them, sleeping near them, depending on them absolutely. Instead, you sit in a chair. You eat without effort. You are physically safe in a way that no human in 300,000 years of history has ever been. And somehow, in some deep and wordless register of your nervous system, that extraordinary safety still feels like something is missing. You wake up sometimes in the night. For no clear reason. Something shifted. A sound you can't identify. Every nerve comes online immediately, sweeping the dark. Your body is still out there, keeping watch. 300,000 years of practice. It hasn't stopped yet.